Good evening, Eswatini. This is Eswatini TV News Bulletin 8, read to you by myself, Notile Sitole. First up, here's a look at tonight's headlines. The Minister of Agriculture says there is a need to review existing policies and strategies to encourage investment in the dairy industry. Over 2,000 orphaned and vulnerable children in the country need foster care. The COVID-19 AstraZeneca vaccine that is expected by the country might arrive over the weekend or next week. And now our bulletin in detail. The Minister of Agriculture, Jabulani Mabuza, says there is a need for his ministry to review existing policies and strategies to ensure that they provide a conducive environment for investing in the dairy industry in the country. The minister gave this task to the new board members of the Dairy Development Board.
The Minister of Agriculture, Jabulani Mabuza, says in addition to reviewing policies and strategies for promoting dairy production in the country, the newly formed board for the Dairy Development Board has to facilitate the quick issuing of import and export permits.
The outgoing board has facilitated the establishment of a new dairy processing facility at Matapa. The infrastructure has been completed, and the new board is to ensure its immediate operation. Linked to the above, there is an urgent need to increase milk production to service the new plants and others that are in expansion. The board has an immediate responsibility to promote investment in milk production to ensure that milk for the processing facilities is locally sourced. The ministry has availed some funds to facilitate investment in milk production. Existing dairy farms will also need to be encouraged and facilitated to increase production levels. Within the board, we have a representative of the ministry coming from the Department of Vet and Livestock Services. With his presence in the board, we expect a smooth and transparent support in the import of dairy animals, milk, and other products.
Chairperson of the board, Patrick Mieni, says they will work diligently to make a meaningful contribution to the dairy industry. He urges the members of the board to work together to further the mandate of the ministry. He pledges his commitment to improve the dairy sector. The 9-member board is expected to be. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I am Nelson Ndlangamandla with Muzim Konda in Babane.
The Principal Secretary in the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, Eswatini Ndawe, says over 2,000 orphans in the country need foster care. Ndawe says the country is looking into laws that will govern foster care processes. Ndawe was speaking during a journalist workshop held at the Hilton Garden Inn.
The workshop, initiated by the Deputy Prime Minister's Office in collaboration with SOS Children Village, brought together journalists from different media houses to be schooled on laws and guidelines on fostering orphans. The Principal Secretary in the Deputy Prime Minister's Office, Eswatini Ndawe, says that there are over 2,000 orphans that need foster care, while Eswatini has only 3 foster homes. Ndawe says the COVID-19 pandemic has left many children orphaned, hence the need to look into the foster care guidelines. Ndawe says that the workshop seeks to revive ensuring that children are well taken care of despite that they lost their parents. Ndawe says they are still going to engage chiefs from all over the country to see to it how best can orphaned children be assisted. He says that in the Shiselweni region, they have already met with a few. Ndawe added that the culture of ensuring are looked after needs to be revived in the country. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni in Babane.
The COVID-19 AstraZeneca vaccine that is expected by the country might arrive over the weekend or next week. This was said by Deputy Director Pharmaceutical in the Ministry of Health, Fortunate Bembe.
Last week, Ghana became the first country in the African continent to receive COVID-19 vaccine under the World Health Organization's COVAX facility, followed by Ivory Coast and Nigeria this week. Deputy Director Pharmaceutical in the Ministry of Health, Fortunate Bembe, says they have received an update from COVAX that Eswatini might receive the first batch of the AstraZeneca vaccine next week.
20% lot outcome ku COVAX facility. I-COVAX facility say indicated ukuthi kulo quarter 1 wa 2021 kusho ukuthi nje lophela ngaye yena lo March but asilethela 108,000 doses walo mjovo ka Oxford AstraZeneca le utawuta-ke batawushipha ngetigaba sesiwatholile ke luhinyana ukuthi ibatch ekuqala seyisendleleni so silungiselela yona ke ukuthi itawungena eveni sibhekile ukuthi kuleli viki lelitako lo mjovo tabe songekhathi eveni.
The Deputy Director says currently health workers are being trained on the vaccination process, including expected after effects. She says they are also registering for the vaccine as they are expected to be the first to receive the dose, followed by the elderly and those with coexisting conditions. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I am Samgal Suyekoza in Pamane.
Illegal poaching cases in the country's game reserves showed a slight decrease in 2020. Eswatini Big Game Parks Training Coordinator Ndumiso Ngambule says this is due to the national partial lockdown implemented to curb the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The 3rd of March each year, the world celebrates Wildlife Day. The theme for 2021 is Forest and Livelihood, Sustaining People and the Planet. Big Game Parks Training Coordinator Ndumiso Ngambule says they anticipated to record more cases of illegal poaching during the partial lockdown. Ngambule says illegal poaching of wild animals in game reserves is still a huge challenge that needs collaboration from different sectors to fight it. Ngambule says they anticipated that more cases will be recorded in 2020 of illegal poaching. He says that it is still a problem that needs to be addressed. He says that in line with the 2021 theme, people need to stop the irresponsible cutting of trees as people need to find a sustainable way to live in harmony with nature. Ngambule appeals to communities situated next to game reserves to continue with eliminating wildfires. Ngambule further requested members of the public to desist from irresponsible cutting of trees. For Eswatini TV News, Ndomlangeni in Lobamba.
The Ministry of Health says despite the decrease in the number of new COVID-19 infections and deaths, Eswatini should still remain vigilant and adhere to all the regulations put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19 because failure to do so will see the country experience a third wave of the pandemic. This was said by Vusi Logotwago, an epidemiologist in the Ministry of Health, when giving the country's COVID-19 update.
On Tuesday this week, the Ministry of Health reported that since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, Eswatini has recorded 17,086 new infections and 652 deaths. However, the rate of the new infections and deaths have significantly dropped from an average 200 new infections per day to 70. No deaths have been reported in the past couple of days. Vusi Logotwago, an epidemiologist at the Ministry of Health, gives an outlook of the pandemic in the country.
We are actually seeing that we have data forums where we actually interrogate the data from the regions, from the field, from contact tracing. We noted a high positivity within the contacts. So we noted around 57% positivity within our contact in one of the regions. And that is actually telling us that if there is someone who is infected, they continue to actually spread the transmit COVID to their friends, to their families, to their workmates. So what we want to say is that this is actually so indicative that COVID-19 transmission is still ongoing. Hence, people should take the preventive measures so that they are not actually infected with COVID. We have run our projections for up to the 26th of March. And the three scenarios, it's actually a range. If things continue like they are, we are likely to see 17,394 cases by 26th of July, ranging to 24,924 cases. And also in the deaths, we are likely to see an increase in the deaths from around 668 to around 791.
On the same day, the ministry reported that 14,898 people had recovered from COVID-19. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Nelson Ndlangamandla with Muzim Konda in Babane.
Owner of popular drinking sport known as Gabiza, Sibusiso Kukuza Dlamini says his 26-year sentence induced a sense of shock and should be reduced. Dlamini argues that the High Court failed to take into consideration that he was provoked and the deceased had stolen from him. The 26-year sentence was handed down by Judge Titus Mlangeni.
Owner of popular drinking sport known as Gabiza, Sibusiso Kukuza Dlamini was convicted of murdering Lungi Hleta, who stole cigarettes and money from his informal shop, popularly known as Paza. The High Court sentenced him to 25 years imprisonment for this crime. Dlamini was also convicted of contempt of court, forgery, and uttering a forged document. He did this by forging a sick note and presenting it as a reason for not appearing in court. Combined with the other three convictions, Dlamini was sentenced to 26 years imprisonment. He appeared before the Supreme Court, arguing that the 26-year sentence handed down by Judge Titus Mlangeni induced a sense of shock. He wants the Supreme Court to reduce the sentence because he did not intend to kill. Dlamini says the High Court erred by failing to hold and find that he was acting in defense of his property when he assaulted the deceased. The appellant has submitted that the evidence establishes that the deceased had stolen money and cigarettes from his shop. He has also submitted that the High Court erred by failing to find and hold that there were extenuating circumstances in the matter. He further submitted that this is despite the Crown having conceded to same. Crown Counsel in the matter, Absalom Makanya, argued that the sentence should not be reduced. Makanya argued that the accused was a dangerous person who has no regard for life. The court said it would look into the evidence and has reserved judgment. In this matter, Dlamini is represented by Noncedo Ndlangamandla. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela, High Court.
The chairperson of the Rural Women Assembly, also known as Sikandvulo Sabomage Lonhlanhla Mthethwa, says the COVID-19 pandemic has taught them skills of using the latest technology, like holding virtual meetings, something they previously did not know. She says there are still existing challenges that women still face in communities.
The month of March is the National Women's Month, and Eswatini has since dedicated this month to women who have done a positive change in society. The Rural Women Assembly, which empowers rural women, says the COVID-19 era has taught them to use the latest meetings using the latest technology, like that of Zoom, which they say they previously did not have that skill. Lonhlanhla Mthethwa, the organization's chairperson, say they've adapted to the new way of living. She says despite changes, they are still empowered on women's rights.
Sesiyakhona kubamba imhlangano sisebenzisa incingo lesithi pheceleti i-teleconference noma i-Zoom. Lebe itolo beside lelo likhono. Siyabona futhi ukuthi bomake siyakhona nokuthi sichubeke sibahlomise ikakhulu ngetekulima letindlela letikhonako ukuthi bomake bamelane nekuguquguquka kwesimo selitulu lesihlasele umhlaba wonke.
She says challenges they still face include that of unequal opportunities in society with men, unfair treatment compared with men, where women are always belittled and women still do not have access to land without the consent of a man or a male child. Yet the Constitution clearly states of equality in the country. She says this Women's Month empowers them to do better. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian MCB, Mbabane.
The chairman of the National Road Transportation Council, Sihlangu Hlabathe, says they are in talks with government about the possibility of increasing bus fares soon. Hlabathe explained that with the increase in fuel prices, they feel bus fare hikes are inevitable.
The chairman of the National Road Transportation Council, Sihlangu Hlabathe, says they have already started engaging government on the bus fare increase. He says with the current increase in fuel, hiking the bus fares will help them make profit. He says in the past years, they have asked for 10 emalangeni for 8 kilometers. However, government granted them 7 emalangeni 50 cents, so they want the remainder. He says with the current economic outlook, they could request for even more.
Imali le ndlela libitwa kuna 8 kilometers lebe simcela ukuthi abe lishumi lemalangeni kodwa ke basicela ema MPs ukuthi asivele bantu manje sibite imali nganga 750 sagcina ke vele sivumelene ngayo.
He says they have already requested government to allow them to return to the full carrying capacity. He says with the possibility of opening of schools, parents and pupils are busy with the preparations. The chairman says just last week they were called by the police in Manzini, who observed that there were a lot of people who needed transport, hence the request to government. Hlabathe says they are hoping that government will hear their plea. The chairman says commuters should not be surprised if some transport operators start charging them more because some were not using the gazetted amount. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Nelson Ndlangamandla with Musi Mkhonda in Matapa.
The Municipal City Council of Mbabane has started an initiative of investing and constructing minibus ranks in surrounding areas of Mbabane and the Central Business District. According to the Communications Officer Lucky Tabete, this will help regulate traffic congestion and transportation in the main bus rank of Mbabane.
Following the annual report of the Municipal Council of Mbabane in 2020, which outlined the goals of developing 9 informal settlements within the Mbabane urban area, Fontaine has been the first of all the settlements to have a development of a minibus rank in attempts to regulate transportation and safe traveling of Eswatini from the main bus rank in Mbabane.
For now, we intend to have a couple of those within the urban boundary. The reason we are taking that strategy is basically to limit or to reduce the number of public transport vehicles at the bus rank, because right now it's packed, there is no space. And the main cause of that is basically vehicles go there to park for almost the entire day. So by having these holding bus ranks in different areas, we are encouraging public transport operators to actually send vehicles to the bus rank to only pick up commuters. So that's the goal.
The communications officer of the municipality, Lucky Tabete, also mentioned that this initiative will help reduce traffic congestion and it will play a role in developing surrounding settlements, allowing people to have safe access to transportation, appropriate means to travel to and from the Central Business District. Reporting for Eswatini TV, Nomalungelo Jele with Giyana Msibi in Mbabane.
Kwakha Invota organization says they have seen an improvement on men and boys who attend their life lessons. Andile Zigalala, the COVID-19 project coordinator, says when they do follow-ups, they got a positive feedback from attendees.
From the 1st of February till the 12th this month, Kwakha Invota has been conducting virtual Eswatini lessons where they are discussing many topics including gender-based violence, consent in relationships, human rights, general male health, amongst other issues. Andile Zigalala, the COVID response project coordinator, says men show interest in learning and being part of Kwakha Invota, and they also see a great change after the lessons when they do follow-ups as an organization.
We then took it a step further because this COVID-19 has not only affected us in terms of health, but also it has affected us in terms of job opportunities, which have been very scarce. Many people have been losing their jobs, and there's been an increase in gender-based violence, GBV. We decided that because we are a male mentoring organization, and this has affected a lot of men, since most of them, they are reluctant maybe to go to clinics and hospitals to do some checks. So we have been engaging these young men through a virtual online session, whereby these young men and boys, they go through a link which is available in our social media platforms. And then once they go through that link, we register them, and then we put them into groups. In these groups, online virtual groups, we then discuss or engage with them on the issues such as gender-based violence in the midst of COVID-19, income-generating activities, and also capacitate them on male health. We concentrate mostly on mental health and also on COVID-19, since these have been found to have affected a lot of these men over the past year or so.
He says men have requested that these lessons must be an ongoing thing because they see a positive change in their lives and in their societies. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian MCB, visuals sourced from the internet.
A very good evening once again. You're still watching Eswatini TV. Now we'll have a look at our sports news. Former Sihlangu striker Bongiswa Romario Nhlabathi says the lack of proper development structures in the country is what is letting down the performance of the national team. Nhlabathi says players need to play in all the development stages for them to be the best of players.
Sihlangu Samnigat has over the past years not been able to perform to the level many Emaswati expect them to. This can be down to many factors. The national team is currently last in the current qualifiers of the next AFCON Games, where they are still to win a game with 2 games to go and they are already out of the competition. Former Sihlangu striker Bongiswa Nhlabathi says one of the key factors for the poor performance by the national team is because of lack of proper development structures within the country. He says during their playing days, they started playing for the under-17 national team and played for the under-20 and the under-23 before they could play for the senior national team. Nhlabathi says there are not enough development coaches who are still passionate about it, which is a major letdown.
Yayilimata kakhulu national team babethe kwe-development. Njengoba ngisho nje thina sasicala kuma-under-20 saseka kuma-under-17. From under-17 national team, under-20 national team, 23 kanye up until national team. So lokhu kubebethe i-development kuyasilimata kakhulu. Ngicabanga so kusekwahamba abantu bafana boSikwaya bayithanda i-development. Sebadzala ke labo Fritz selbhala lebathanza sekude labantu abakhuthela development kakhulu. Kuyasilimata vele silife.
Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi with Linda Dlamini Ngonini.
Thandaza Zwane, the athlete who was banned for doping, says he has not given up hope that he will return to compete when his ban has ended. Zwane was banned in 2019 for 4 years for using banned substances in sports. Zwane was speaking during an interview with Eswatini TV Sports.
In 2019, Eswatini correctional athlete Thandaza Zwane, who was at the time Eswatini record holder in the 400 meters, was banned by the Eswatini Athletic Association for 4 years after it was found that he has used banned substances in sport that is said to be enhancing the performance of athletes. It's now 2 years since Zwane was banned, but he has not given up on the sport, as he said he's still continuing with his training. Zwane says the COVID-19 has been a blessing in disguise for him, as there are few competitions, which means he's not missing out much.
When the sports kumele uhlale ukompita ube nawo ama competitions every game time. Yeka athletics ikakhulukati kumele ube nawo ube nama competitions lamaningi in order to improve your time. Zawukhona qualify for big competitions kumele ukhone ukuthi uhlale ukompita. mina ngasho ukuthi i-COVID-19 ibe advantage kimi ngalokuthi ama-competitions mancane akucompete these days. Ngakimi uyaqhubeka umnyaka uyahamba. Nyalo is 2 years since ngasuspend bangakhona ukukhompyutha but ngiyaqhubeka ngiyajima ukuthi ngidawukhona ukuthi ngihlale ngifit ngihlale ngiactive ngidawukhona ukuthi mangibuya ngiqhubeke ngigijime ngiqhubeke ngibe kuleso standard lengagcina ngikuso ngizakhompyutha.
Zwane concluded by encouraging other athletes to be careful of what they are taking at all time and update themselves on the new list released by the World Anti-Doping Association of the things that athletes should not use. He also encouraged them to be careful of the coronavirus. It has proven to be deadly. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi with Linda Dlamini Babane.
That's all for now. Before we conclude, let's have a look at tonight's headlines. The Minister of Agriculture says there is a need to review existing policies and strategies to encourage investment in the dairy industry. Over 2,000 orphaned and vulnerable children in the country need foster care. The COVID-19 AstraZeneca vaccine that is expected by the country might arrive over the weekend or next week. Just a reminder, to keep up with the latest trends, Eswatini TV will now have an app, of which more information on the app will be availed in the next 48 hours. Otherwise, from myself and the team here at Eswatini TV, thank you for watching. Good night.